Hello, this is Dan with Orbital Guitars, and welcome to part 4 of this build that I'm calling Bob 1.5. The first thing I'm going to do is create the cavity for the output jack. I'll start with a Forstner bit to remove most of the material, then follow that with my router and a routing template, which fortunately is easy to keep in place because the surface I'm working on here is flat. After that, I will use my Dremel with the precision router base to recess the jack plate so that it sits flush with the side of the body. The next thing I need to do is drill a path for the wires to get all the way from the pickup through the control cavity and out to the jack. This is pretty tricky to do because the drill bit has to get through a very narrow bit of wood, and if the bit wanders even a little bit left or right, it will pop out just under the bridge or inside of the wing. Speaking of the control cavity, it's not even big enough that I could use a Forstner bit to drill it out. Instead, I have to use a 1/2-inch drill bit, and just a few passes with that will almost finish the whole cavity. That being said, I do still have to route it out a bit to make the sides nice and neat. With most of the cavity prepared, I now need to route in a narrow slot similar to what would be used for a blade switch, and I'll do this with my Dremel and the precision router base. And this little device here will be the volume and tone control. Now for the backplate, I'm recessing a small area around the cavity itself. I always seem to get a bit scattered at this point in a guitar build and keep thinking, oh yeah, I need to do this, and I almost forgot that. In this case it was, oh yeah, I still need to make the nut. So that's what I'm doing here. First, marking the locations for the outer slots, then using a string spacing ruler, I mark out where the rest need to go, then put a small cut at each mark for the files to follow. Before I actually file the nut slots, I will glue the nut into place with a couple drops of super glue on the end of the fretboard. And scattered thoughts strike again. I need to do one extra step for the control cavity, which is to route a small concave valley into the front of the body because the control wheels can't quite get all the way through. This is also better than routing the cavity itself deeper because it's already going to be a pain to work in such a narrow space as it is. and of course lots of sanding. At this point I decided to bevel all of the outside edges of the front of the body just because I thought it would look a little nicer and because this will make it a bit more comfortable to play. Okay, now I'm ready to file the nut slots. I'll start with the smallest file and let it follow the knife cuts I made earlier, and this will establish a line that the larger files can easily follow without slipping. Now it's time for the finish. Here I'm just using some semi-gloss lacquer. I'm making sure to get some of the lacquer sprayed inside each of the cuts in the wings, if only to seal the wood. Then after this first coat dries, I'll sand down any runs that formed on the top or back, then respray the front and back to give it an even coat. And this finish turned out so well that I only needed those 2 coats before I was satisfied with it. After the finish is cured, I can paint the inside of the backplate, the pickup pocket, and the control cavities with shielding paint. You may notice here that the back of the neck did not get lacquered, and that's because it's getting a light oil finish. I do this because I just don't like lacquered necks and much prefer satin finish. I'll use the same oil to finish the headstock and the fretboard. Now I need to have a ground wire to the bridge, but this bridge is made up of 6 separate pieces that would each need to be grounded. So how to connect all of them? After a couple days of thinking, this is the solution I came up with: conductive shielding tape. Now while it's meant for shielding cavities, the outer surface is electrically conductive and will be in contact with all 6 bridge pieces. The shielding tape is about the same color as the bridge, so simply sticking it under where the bridge pieces will go and cutting away the excess, it will blend right in. With the bridge pieces installed, I will now install the anchors at the headstock. These things have such fiddly little screws that I had to find my smallest Phillips head screwdriver just to drive them in. Onto the pickup. This is the Witch model from Dark Moon Pickups. Don't mind me struggling with the box. I chose one with a very nice black mother of pearl and dark chrome cover. Here I'm direct mounting the pickup to the body since the central section is too narrow for a pickup ring to work, as the screws would just go into empty air. And then a bit of wiring. The wiring itself wasn't too difficult, but getting the board with the wheels on it to go into the control cavity and stick in the right place was a huge pain. So much so that I didn't actually manage to film it when it happened. Then, finally, the strap locks get installed and I can wrap up another completed guitar build. Which brings us to the end of part 4 of this guitar build. A full build and demo video will be up next week. Social media links are in the description, as well as my business email and a link to my reverb shop where you can find any of my guitars that are currently up for sale, and some guitar body design routing templates for those who may be interested in building their own versions of my designs. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you around for the next instrument.